Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today it's the end of October and it's been a beautiful day. It is quite cold and we have hit the 20-degree temperatures over the last several nights. So there are certain things that are done for the year and there are other things that are still going, and I wanted to give you a tour of what is still blooming even after the freezing temperatures in my Zone 7 landscape in Utah. Now this is going to be a little bit of a longer video because what I did is I went through the middle of October when everything was still glorious and took a video of what it looked like then. And then after I show you that and show you the flowers that bloomed that you missed, we're going to do a tour of what my yard looks like now. So let's look at what you missed and what it looked like in the middle of October when everything was still glorious. So now we're back to the present. Let's show you what the yard looks like now. So this is what my landscape looks like now, and we still have mums that are blooming. I think they're absolutely glorious, and they bloom for a very long period of time. Now I will be cutting these back in another couple of weeks and cleaning up the yard. I usually have everything cleaned up by Thanksgiving. Now one plant that I will not cut back until next spring, just so that we know what has died and what hasn't died, is the butterfly bush. And I'm going to miss the beautiful blooms that were on this. We haven't seen significant dieback, but it has definitely stopped blooming. We've seen dieback on my hardy hibiscus. That will be cut down about halfway, and then I'll cut it down the rest of the way next spring. We're seeing some frost damage on my sedum, but this sedum still looks good. We'll just leave these standing as long as possible, as long as they still look good and don't get smashed by the snow or the rain. My St. John's wort is going to die back eventually, once it gets a little bit colder, and that will be cut back in the spring, as will my grasses. This one's a rustlebrush, panicum, or switchgrass. We're starting to see fall color on my Glow Girl Spirea, and I absolutely love it. Look at this. We've got a fresh, beautiful flower on my Little Devil 9-bark. The leaves will die on this, but the branches don't die back, so this is more of a woody shrub than a perennial, as is my Autumn Jubilee 9-bark. Let's go around and I'll show you what the bark looks like. I love how the bark looks on my 9-bark. All 9-barks will do this. This one is just one that I've allowed to continue to grow and have allowed the bark to become mature. It's absolutely gorgeous. My Weeping Blue Spruce is going to stay and be color all year and texture. I absolutely love this tree. It's not going to get a lot bigger than it is right now. It's pretty much hit its full size. And I love the color contrast, and it's really hard to see it because it's getting dark, but the color contrast between that and the 9-bark is gorgeous. Now the frost has stopped the blooms and it has killed the leaves on my chaste tree, and hopefully it doesn't die to the ground like it did last year. I'm hoping that it will continue to grow. We'll just see what happens with it. My Moonshine Yarrow is putting on new growth, but the frost is going to knock that back. And even though it's putting on new growth, it's going to be fine. It'll just come back next spring. And the flowers on my hydrangea have lost all their color, and they are getting ready for winter. This right here is a Black Tower elderberry. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It'll lose all its leaves, but it won't die to the ground. It's pretty cold hardy. But my figs had to be covered before we hit 20 degrees. I found here in Utah, if figs go below 20 degrees, the branches will die back, and then you reduce the chance of getting viable figs the next year. So we definitely have those protected right now. I still have a few viable blooms on my catmint, but this will be cut back at the end of November and then just come back next year. My sedums have been changing color, as have my hens and chicks. And they will mostly last throughout the winter, and we'll just see, it just depends on how wet the winter is on how well they'll do, but usually they do really well. My plumbagos changed color. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. Here's another Glow Girl Spirea. And this is what my front yard looks like after we've hit 20-degree temperatures for several nights in a row. I think the hardest hit is my hummingbird trumpet, or Zauschneria. That's getting ready to be cut back. We're starting to get the color change on the leaves on the strawberries. And then I love that contrast with the partridge feather. We're starting to see cold damage on the alyssum. But we are still getting blooms On my Sundancer daisies, these are some of my longest blooming flowers and I absolutely love them. Now I'm not going to cut these back. You know, I'll get them off the sidewalk, but I'm not going to cut them back too much until next spring and they'll reseed themselves. The blue oak grass will stay up all winter. It doesn't usually need to be cut back. You kind of just comb through and take out any of the dead and brown the next spring. And it's the same with the blue fescue. I can't remember what this is called, the purple prince or dark prince, one of those sedums. It's still blooming. Flowers are really pretty and the color is still good. Eventually the cold is just going to melt this to the ground and I'll cut it back then. Thyme is still doing well. This is a variegated thyme. It's called Foxley. It's not blooming anymore, but it did bloom quite a bit for a while here in October. We've got more fall color on my Glow Girl Spirea, but my yellow mums are just about done. The red ones have lasted really well. They're doing beautifully. And we still have blooms on my Wild Ones Salvia. I'm going to be interested to see if this is a salvia that dies to the ground over the winter. Now we missed it, so I'll show you the pictures. But this is my Immortality Iris and it rebloomed, but the cold temperatures completely knocked it to the ground. And there's my giant glow blue spruce. Now glow blue spruce, they say that they're only supposed to be 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide. And I'm telling you that is wrong. Mine are about 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide. But we still are echoing the colors that we had on the other side. This is also an Autumn Jubilee 9 bark. Absolutely beautiful against the blue spruce. This is another hardy hibiscus that's going to need to be cut back. We'll do it by halfway. Now the reason I cut hardy hibiscus back only halfway is they have hollow stems. And if you get too much moisture in down near the roots, you could hurt the roots. So what I want to do is make sure we don't get any of that moisture down through the stems down to the roots. This is my new little blue stem grass. It's called Blaze. And it's starting to go dormant and it's got a beautiful color change. That's going to be really pretty once it gets full size next year. The Mexican feathergrass will stay up most of the winter and it's absolutely gorgeous. Even if the snow smashes it down, it does usually pop up well. And the lavender here is evergreen, so we always have that beautiful color over the winter. I've wrapped my pomegranate. I'm doing it a little more lightly this year. Last year I did greenhouse plastic and bubble wrap, and it protected it really well. This year it's older, it's more mature, so I'm going to see how much cold it can tolerate. Hopefully it doesn't die all the way back. We may get dieback at the top though. I'm leaving the top exposed just to see what happens. Looks like we're seeing the end of this glorious Agastache or hummingbird mint. It has been so beautiful since June, and now it's starting to be done. We've got the remnants of the last flowers there that are probably just not going to survive too much longer, especially with this weather. The Overdam feather reed grass will stay up and look beautiful most of the winter. Once we get the heavy snows, if we get heavy snows, it does smash it down a bit, but I think I'm going to divide these next year. They're actually starting to hollow out in the center, so that it's definitely time to divide them. The chokeberries still have their fruit on them. They're drying up. They're not tasty, so I'm not going to eat them. And a lot of the leaves have fallen, but we had some good fall color change on those. And I'm going to take you on a quick tour through my backyard. This area right through here is connected to the front and connected to my garden beds for the water. So I have more water-hungry and shade-tolerant plants here. We have the hydrangeas. These are the Hydrangea macrophylla, and they did not get a chance to have their leaf color change before the frost killed them back. Now, these are quite hardy, quite cold hardy. The only thing that seems to reduce the growth for the next year is a late spring freeze. So I've learned to cover these up in the spring if we're going to get anywhere below freezing, once they've started to leaf out. But the early fall freezes don't seem to bother them very much. These are 15 years old. My mint is just about ready to be cut back, as is the rest of my shade plants. I've got some hostas that have died to the ground. I've got some Brennera that's getting ready to be cut back, and all of the rest of these, here's another hydrangea, the Hydrangea macrophylla in the summer, and then we've got some more currants. I've removed everything out of my garden beds, except for the arugula, which is going to just be left uncovered and see how long it survives. It'll survive some of the winter, as will this glorious kale over here. The kale and the Swiss chard over here will last unless it gets in the single digits. Once it gets in the single digits, we start to see dieback. And I am definitely ready, and I think maybe Wednesday is the day that I'm going to do it, but I need to harvest my Jerusalem artichokes and clean out that bed. So we'll pull all the Jerusalem artichokes out, and then we'll re-amend the bed and replant some of them. Now it's going to be interesting to see what happens with my apples. The pear in the middle has absolutely gorgeous fall color, but my apples have not even started to think about going dormant. And last year they did not go dormant, and the leaves hung on the tree live until January. And from what I heard, the reason they did that is because we had a really warm fall, then it turned really cold, really quick, hit the 20s and below, like immediately. There was no in between the warm and the cold. And then they never got the chance to get the signal to go dormant, so they just kept going. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. And then we've got my passion vine that's hanging over the top. As soon as the frost kills this completely back, we're going to pull it to the ground and let it insulate its own roots. And then I'll cut all the vines back in the spring. Now the fruit on it never had a chance to ripen. It's not going to ripen. I actually cut one of those open and it was not ready for sure. We had several fruits form. Got another one in here. Got several more down here. They just, like as I said, never had a chance to ripen. So that really kind of makes me sad, but the flowers are gorgeous. We've got our winter vegetables all tucked in and ready to grow over the winter. I'll harvest them early in the spring. And we're just starting to see some color change on my cotoneaster. The berries are gorgeous. And then the leaves, let's see if we can find any of the leaves that are changing color. If you look in here, some of the leaves are starting to change color. And it's interesting to see how soon trees defoliate. We've got the neighbor's poplars back there that are just starting to defoliate a little bit. But my Canadian red chokecherry is completely done losing its leaves. They've all hit the ground. My jujube, if I gave it a good shake, we'd probably lose all the leaves off of this. But I think it's just waiting for a windstorm to knock them down. Now this is a Bergarten sage. It's a larger version of the culinary sage, and this will actually keep its color all year round. It's pretty much evergreen. We'll have a little bit of dieback, but this is one that gives great winter interest. Now I'm not quite sure how I feel about winter coming. I am definitely going to miss the flowers. I'm going to miss picking fruit. I'm going to miss grazing through my yard because I have so many edibles. But I am ready for a little bit of a break. But I am not so ready for a break that I'm going to quit gardening. Now I garden indoors a lot over the winter, and I'm going to continue gardening indoors over this winter. And I think I'm going to start in a series about indoor gardening and what you can grow indoors and how to do it. If you'd like to learn more about indoor gardening, please leave a comment below. I've done it for several years, and you can grow just about anything you want indoors. The only limiting factors are your space and the amount of light that you have. So I will show you how to overcome those obstacles, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But I would love to hear how you feel about winter coming and if you're going to grow indoors over the winter. So please comment down below and let me know what you're growing. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.